If you couldn't tell from the video title yet, I'll be modding my budget mechanical keyboard. The switches that I got were Outemu Red switches. The PCB is also Outemu hot swappable, which means that I wouldn't have to solder the switches onto the PCB. Other than that, I'm not sure if I prefer linear switches over tactile or clicky switches, so I did not want to invest too much on linears. I also decided to get some casing foam just to dampen some of the sounds from the switches and improve the overall acoustics of the keyboard. Anyway, here's the soundtest of my current keyboard. This keyboard came with inbuilt stabilizers that were pre-lubed, but as expected with budget mechanical keyboards, they were very shaky and the quality of the lube was not that good. These are Outemu Red switches. They require 47 grams of force to actuate and has an actuation point of 2.1 millimeters. To disassemble these Outemu switches, I started by sliding the tip of my screwdriver in between the locking mechanism of the switch. Then I lifted it up so that it is above the two bumps. Then I slid a piece of plastic in between the locking mechanism and closed it back together. Then I flipped it to the other side and unlocked the locking mechanism fully on that side. I then flipped it to the first side and unlocked the locking mechanism fully on that side. It takes a little bit of force, but it works pretty well. So now we have all the parts: the spring, the bottom housing, the stem, and the top housing. With all the parts disassembled, we are now ready for lubing. For the lube, I used Krytox 205 grade 0. For the bottom housing, I lubed the two slider rails with a small amount of lube and brushed the residual lube onto the two bumps on the leaf. For the spring, I just brushed on a generous amount of lube onto one end of the spring. I then placed it onto the bottom housing and lubed the other end of the spring. For the stem, I applied some lube on the two slider rails. I then applied the leftover lube on the brush to the back and front faces. Then I evenly distributed the lube on all the faces. Once I was done, I applied the residual lube on the brush onto the bottom of the stem and the inner pole. Then I reassembled the switch by placing the stem onto the spring and the top housing onto the bottom housing and locking it into place. And yeah, I had to do that for another 46 switches. Then I placed in the lube switches. Just as I thought I was done, I realized I forgot to put in the case foam. So I took apart my keyboard. I placed the foam into the case and put the keyboard back together. So I tested the keyboard, and it didn't work. So I had to spend the next hour figuring out how to fix the PCB by soldering, and eventually it worked. Anyway, here's a sound test. Here's a side-by-side comparison. That brings us to the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Do remember to hit the like and subscribe button down below. 15 likes and I'll make a custom keyboard video. Thanks for watching.